A very good afternoon to all. So we are back with the another topic of inflation and unemployment. Both are the problems for the economy and not good for the economy. But mild rate of inflation, we always say that it is good for the economy because for the investors, because their main motive is to make profit. So in this session we are going to discuss about like how inflation and unemployment are related to each other, how one changes and the other impact on the other factor, and how they are related to each other. And the curve which shows the relationship between inflation and unemployment is known as Phillips curve. So in this session we are going to discuss about what is Phillips curve, what is the relationship between inflation and unemployment, and what is the impact of unemployment on the overall growth of the economy. So Professor Phillips, formerly of London School of Economics, urged that there was a close link between the level of unemployment and the rate of wage increase. We know that Keynes was of the opinion that trade unions would tend to raise wages more rapidly when unemployment rates were higher. And Phillips studied the relationship between unemployment and the rate of changes in the money wages in the UK over the period of 1862 to 1957. As a result of this study, he discovered a stable relationship over a whole period between the rate of wage increase and the percentage of unemployment. Phillips curve shows this relationship, and it may also be considered as relationship between inflation and unemployment, because when there is inflation, money wages invariably go up under trade union pressure, because the highest component of the price or the cost of any product is the wage component or the labor component. So if money wage increases, then inflation rate also increases. So therefore both have direct relationship, inflation and the wage rate, money wage rate. The relationship between inflation and unemployment or employment has been a continuous issue. Now, although the issue was first raised by Irving Fisher in 1920, it was A.W. Phillips, a British economist and a professor at London School of Economics, who conducted an empirical and theoretically sound study in 1958 on the relationship between unemployment and change in money wage rates in the British economy during the period of 1862 to 1957. Now, Phillips found an inverse relationship between the rate of change in the money wage rate and the rate of unemployment. Now, according to his findings, when money wage increases, unemployment rate decreases. The rise in money wage rate may be the cause and also the effect of inflation. In any case, inflation and unemployment are interrelated to each other. Now, it is possibly for this reason that the logic of Phillips curve was extended to construct the theory of relationship between inflation and unemployment. In fact, Phillips' findings created a flutter and generated a long debate on the relationship between inflation and unemployment and its policy implication on the economy. Now, in the course of this debate, many economists expressed their opinion on and contributed to the analysis of relation between the rate of inflation and rate of employment. However, to begin with, we will discuss first the Phillips curve and then its theoretical findings. Now, as mentioned above and as we have discussed, Phillips had found in his study that there exists an inverse relationship between the rate in the money wage or change in the money wage rate and the rate of unemployment. He presented this inverse relationship between the change in money wage rate and the rate of unemployment in the form of a curve, and that curve is known as Phillips curve. Phillips established through an empirical study that there exists an inverse relationship between the rate of unemployment and the rate of increase in the wage rate. So, the general conclusion that is drawn from Phillips' empirical finding is that a rise in wage rate reduces the rate of unemployment and a fall in money wage increases the rate of unemployment. Now, besides, from policy point of view, Phillips curve reveals that there exists a trade-off between the rate of unemployment and the rate of change in the money wage rate. That is, a lower rate of unemployment can be achieved only by allowing a money wage rate to increase up to a certain level. Now, this implies that inflation reduces the unemployment rate. The Phillips curve is reproduced here, and the dots in the figure shows that the combination of rise in wage rate and decline in unemployment rate in different years over a period of 52 years. A curve drawn through this cluster of dots produces the Phillips curve, and this curve shows the inverse relationship between the rate of change in the money wage rate and the rate of unemployment. This result is based on the study of Phillips curve of over 52 years. The Phillips curve is drawn on the basis of this equation fitted to the actual data, and the fitted equation is given as like y plus a is equal to bxc, or y is equal to minus a plus bxc. Now, where y is the rate of change of wage rate and x is the percentage of unemployment, and the constraints b and c are constants estimated by applying the least square method using the value of x and y, and constant a was obtained through trial and error. And this you can see in the diagram, these dots, and if we join these dots, and you find that there is inverse relationship between the inflation rate and unemployment rate. The relationship between the wage rate and unemployment rate produced an empirical equation, and as given below. The equation estimated by Phillips that yielded the Phillips curve is on y plus 0.900 equal to 9.638 x raised to power this, or it can be like log of y plus 0.900 equal to 0.984 minus 1.34 log x. The validity of the Phillips curve was tested for different periods by Phillips himself. Now, its validity was later examined by other economists also, and for instance like Richard Lipsey applied the standard statistical technique to data collected and used by Phillips to verify the relationship between the rates of change in money wage rate and unemployment rates, and Lipsey's finding was similar to Phillips' result, though Lipsey's equation was somewhat different. So, we can say that it is tried and tested and proved that there was inverse relationship between inflation rate and unemployment rate. Now, although Phillips had traced the relation between the rate of change in money wages and the rate of unemployment, his analysis was later extended to examine the relationship between the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment. A plausible reason for this might be the fact that movements in wages and prices are interlinked and they move in the same direction, because as we have discussed that when money wage rate increases, that leads to increase in the prices, because the major component in the cost is the wage. Now, under this interpretation of the curve, some economists have used the US data to verify the Phillips curve in the short run phases of different periods. Now, for example, Dernberg used the US data for the period 1951 to 61, Dornbusch and Fisher for 1961 to 69, Ackley for 1955 to 69, and Glazes too for 1961 to 70. And they all find Phillips curve relationship to be consistent with the US data in the short run. And their Phillips curve shows a positive relation between the rate of inflation and the rate of employment, and inverse relation between rate of inflation and rate of unemployment. Now, what are the factors behind Phillips curve relationship? The economists have found an inverse relationship between the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment. That means, in other words, you can say that inflation reduces the unemployment. And the logic is also simple, because when there is inflation, when prices are increasing, then that leads to the increase in the profit margin of the investor. And since their basic motive to invest is the profit maximization, so if the tendency of profit increases, the investment increases and unemployment goes down. So that is the logic behind the inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. Now the question arises here, why is there an inverse relationship between the rate of inflation and rate of unemployment? Or how does inflation reduces the rate of unemployment, or how does it promote employment? The inverse relationship between the inflation rate and unemployment rate can be explained by both demand pull and wage push factors of inflation. Now first, if we talk about demand pull factor, now considering the demand pull factors, first Phillips curve postulated that during demand pull inflation, demand for labor increases as increase in the prices gives firm incentive to increase production. He argues when the demand for labor is very high and there are very few unemployed, we should expect employer to bid wage rates up quite rapidly, and each firm, each industry being continually tempted to offer a little above the prevailing rates to attract the most suitable labor from other firms and industries. Now, as labor moves from one firm to other firm, from one industry to other, it creates job vacancies, and as a result, the employed labor is drawn from employment. Thus, with the increase in the money wage rates following the rise in inflation rate, the rate of unemployment decreases. More importantly, it has been observed that the upward movement in the wage rate following the rise in price, the demand for labor is quick and rapid. Now, on the contrary, during the period of recession or deflation, workers are reluctant to offer their services at less than the prevailing wage rates. Now, when the demand for labor is low and unemployment is high, so it means that downward adjustment of the wage rate is slow, and that unemployment increases with the decrease in the wage rate. So it can be drawn from the analysis of relationship between wage rate and inflation. First, that unemployment rate and wage rate are inversely related. Secondly, upward movement in wage is rapid and quick during inflation, but downward adjustment in wages is gradual, rather sticky during the period of deflation. And this trend makes the Phillips curve a non-linear curve with a negative slope. Second factor is wage push factor. The extent to which labor unions can get wages pushed up depends, among other things, on the rate of unemployment. The lower the rate of unemployment, the greater the union's power to get wages pushed up, and vice versa. Also, the period of low unemployment is generally the sign of buoyant product market and high profits. Therefore, employers are willing and able to pay higher wages, and there is therefore a fast upward movement in wages and decrease in unemployment. Now, on the contrary, when unemployment rate is high and profits are low, labor unions are constrained to demand high wage rates, and employers on their part resist paying higher wages. Thus, with high rate of unemployment, wages tend to decline, and this relationship produces a Phillips curve. So, what is the trade-off between inflation, unemployment, and policy implication of their trade-off? A high rate of both inflation and unemployment is undesirable. But inflation is desirable to some extent as it reduces unemployment. Now, from employment policy point of view, therefore, it often becomes essential for the countries facing high rate of unemployment to find a suitable combination of rates of inflation and unemployment. Why? Because inflation can be bare to some extent, because that leads to peak or prosperity in the economy, because profits will increase, investments will increase, employment will increase, and it will lead to increase in income. But unemployment is a problem, and which cannot be bared by any economy, and which is not a good signal for the economy. So any country has to find out the suitable combination of both, where they can accept inflation and unemployment, and this combination can be obtained by exchanging some rate of unemployment for some rate of inflation. Exchange rate refers to the trade-off now of rates of inflation and unemployment. The Phillips curve provides large number of such trade-off points, and this is called the menu for choice between inflation and unemployment. So the trade-off between inflation and unemployment has a very important policy implication. Now, given the inflation and unemployment rate combinations, policy makers get a number of trade-off points between inflation and unemployment to choose from. A widely used theoretical and hypothetical Phillips curve is shown in the diagram below, and a vertical axis left side measures the annual rate of inflation, and horizontal it explains the rate of unemployment. And for example, if wage rate rise by 5% and labor productivity increases by 2%, then the rate of inflation is only 3%, and that you can see in the diagram, which shows relationship between inflation rate and unemployment rate. So given the Phillips curve, the trade-off between the unemployment and the inflation rate can be easily found. For example, as shown in this figure, a 2.5%, which is equal to 6.5% unemployment, can be traded or accepted for a 2% of inflation. It means that from policy point of view, that if unemployment rate is intended to be reduced from 6.5% to 4%, a rise in inflation rate from 3% to 5% will have to be tolerated, because there is inverse relationship. So it depends upon the condition of the economy, it depends upon the situation of the economy, that what rate of unemployment and what rate of inflation is acceptable to the economy, and that is actually shows that the trade-off between the two. So if government wants to reduce unemployment, then they have to bear with the increase in the inflation rate, or if they want to reduce the inflation rate, that may lead to increase in the unemployment rate. So it depends upon the priority at that time, and what is the priority, whether to control the inflation or to control the unemployment, because there is a trade-off between the two. Now, if an inflation rate of 3% is the target in this example to go further, then unemployment rate of 6.5% will have to be accepted. A similar conclusion can be drawn by linking unemployment rate to wage inflation rate given on the vertical axis of the right hand side. Now, if we talk about the unemployment effects, then unemployment, as we have seen, is not good for the economy. it has social effect as well as the individual impact. And if we talk about social impact, then it is not accepted by the society, and that may create law and order problem, because if people are unemployed, then crimes also increases, poverty increases, and these all have the social level impact of unemployment. If we talk about individual level impact, then mental stress, those who are unemployed, they obviously will have mental stress, loss of self-esteem, or direct, that lead to the poverty. So these are the main effects of unemployment. Now, policy for full employment, to create a state of full employment is not an easy job. Okay, no simple and straight remedy can be prescribed for this purpose of getting full employment in the economy. And there is no panacea which can cure a country of unemployment and create, conditions of full employment. So, to control inflation and to control unemployment, there are policy measures which can be, used under the fiscal policy, monetary policy, income policy, price policy, and also even international measures. Okay, so if there is unemployment in the economy, then investment has to be increased, demand has to be increased, and therefore aggregate, to increase the aggregate demand, government can use expansionary monetary policy, expansionary fiscal policy, increase in government expenditure, increase in the income, okay, or price policy depending upon the situation in the economy, international measures like export promotion, import substitution, because if we increase our exports, then demand for our products will increase, production will increase, and if production increases, it means that demand for labor will increase, more employment opportunities will be there. Similarly, import substitution means whatever we are importing, we can produce in our country, we can produce substitutes for the imported products, and that will also help, flourishing our industry and increase in the demand of the labors in the economy itself, and that will help in reducing the problem of unemployment. Okay, so there are various policies. Sometimes if both the problems are there, inflation and unemployment, then government has to go for policy mix, because one policy to control unemployment, second policy may be to control inflation. So government is trying their best, to control both, and they keep on taking different policy measures. There are various schemes also in Indian economy to generate employment. Various Rojgar Yojanas are there, self-employment schemes are there to control unemployment in Indian economy. So thank you so much for your patience hearing, and we will meet again with the next topic. More interesting topics are there in macroeconomics. So thank you so much.